Hey there, history buffs and people who accidentally clicked on this. Welcome to a journey back in time, to an era where one single event set off a chain reaction that changed the world forever. Let's talk about World War I, shall we? The Great War, as it was known back then, was a conflict that engulfed nations and reshaped borders. It was a time of alliances, betrayals, and unprecedented warfare. Buckle up, because it's a wild ride through terrible decisions, questionable facial hair, and enough trench foot to knock you right out of your chair. Imagine living in those trenches, day in and day out, with the constant threat of enemy fire and disease. Now picture this. Sarajevo, 1914, a city bustling with life, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. A sunny day, birds are singing, and Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, decides to visit. He and his wife are in an open car, waving to the crowds, completely oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Not exactly a recipe for disaster, right? Wrong. The streets are packed, the security is lax, and the tension is palpable. A wrong turn, a sandwich break, and BAM! Gavrilo Princip, a Serbian nationalist with really bad timing, shoots the Archduke and his wife. Oops, this seemingly small act of violence would spiral into a catastrophe. You'd think this would be a local issue, right? Just a tragic event in a far-off corner of Europe, like, Serbia, get your act together. But the reality was far more complex. Alliances and treaties meant that this assassination had far-reaching implications. But no, this wasn't just some fender-bender. This was a geopolitical pileup of epic proportions. Countries were bound by agreements to defend each other, and soon the entire continent was dragged into the conflict. This assassination was the match that lit the powder keg of Europe's already tense political climate. The alliances, the rivalries, the ambitions, all of it came to a head. Think of it like this. Europe was a room full of people holding lit fireworks, all staring each other down. One wrong move and everything would explode. Poor Franz Ferdinand was just the unfortunate soul who sneezed. His death set off a chain reaction that led to one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Now, remember those alliances we talked about? Yeah, those fireworks? They were more like a powder keg waiting to explode. The intricate web of alliances in pre-World War I Europe was a ticking time bomb, and it didn't take much to set it off. Let's meet the pyromaniacs, shall we? These leaders were the ones holding the matches, ready to ignite the fuse. On one side we had the Central Powers Germany, always up for a good time, especially if it involves invading Belgium, with their efficient military machine and a penchant for causing trouble. Austria-Hungary, basically the crumbling empire that started this whole mess, struggling to keep its diverse empire together while picking fights it couldn't handle. And the Ottoman Empire, just trying to hold it together, bless their hearts, hoping to regain some lost glory amidst the chaos. On the other side, we had the Allies Great Britain, never one to miss a good scrap, with their vast empire and naval supremacy. France, still smarting from a previous German vacation in their backyard, eager to reclaim lost territories and settle old scores. Russia, with their Tsar and his questionable facial hair choices, dealing with internal strife but still ready to throw their weight around, and eventually a reluctant United States, more on that later, who would join the fray and tip the scales. These alliances were like a giant game of my best friend's cousin's dog walker's neighbor's goldfish is looking at my goldfish funny. Everyone was connected in some convoluted way, and it didn't take much to spark a conflict. It was messy, confusing, and frankly, nobody really remembered why they were fighting in the first place. The war quickly spiraled out of control, dragging nations into a conflict that would change the world forever. So Austria-Hungary, fuming after the Archduke's assassination, decided to teach Serbia a lesson. They issued an ultimatum so harsh that Serbia basically had to choose between national suicide and war. Surprise, surprise, they chose war. And just like that, the dominoes began to fall. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. Germany, feeling left out of the fun, declared war on Russia and France shortly after. And by the time August rolled around, most of Europe was embroiled in a conflict that would last 4 long years. The world watched in horror as the fighting escalated, turning Europe into a muddy, bloody quagmire of trenches, poison gas, and machine gun fire. This wasn't the glorious war everyone had imagined, it was a brutal, industrial-scale meat grinder. Section 4, the price tag of war. More than just money down the drain. Let's talk about money, shall we? Because when it comes to war, the costs are astronomical. War, as it turns out, is an expensive hobby. The logistics alone are mind-boggling, feeding, arming, and transporting millions of soldiers. By the time the guns finally fell silent in 1918, the world had spent an estimated $338 billion in today's money on this grand exercise in futility. This staggering sum drained national treasuries and left economies in tatters. Economies were shattered, infrastructure lay in ruins, and entire cities had to be rebuilt from the ground up. Countries were drowning in debt. And the worst part? The financial strain didn't end with the war. Nobody even won any cool prizes. The so-called victors were left to deal with the aftermath. Unless you count crippling inflation, social unrest, and the Spanish flu. In which case, congratulations. These were the grim rewards for a world at war. You just won the jackpot of misery. The Spanish flu alone claimed millions of lives, adding to the already staggering death toll. The human cost was even more staggering. The war left deep scars on the human psyche. Millions of soldiers lay dead in the mud, their lives cut short in the prime of youth, and countless civilians perished from disease, starvation, and displacement. Families were torn apart and communities were destroyed. It was a tragedy on a scale the world had never seen before. The legacy of World War I is a somber reminder of the true cost of conflict. Section 5. War profiteers, making a killing while others were killed. But hey, it wasn't all doom and gloom, right? I mean, somebody had to profit from all this death and destruction, right? Enter the war profiteers, those savvy entrepreneurs who saw a golden opportunity in the midst of global carnage. While millions suffered, these captains of industry were raking in the dough, supplying weapons, ammunition, and other essential war materials. They were like the guys who sold picks and shovels during the gold rush. Only instead of gold, it was death, and lots of it. War is bad for business, they'd say with a wink and a smile, unless of course it's your business. Ah, the sweet, sweet sound of capitalism at its finest. Section 6. The world turned upside down. Nothing was ever the same. By the time the dust settled, the world had been irrevocably changed. Empires crumbled, new nations emerged, and the old order was swept away. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure peace, only sowed the seeds for future conflict. The war also gave rise to new ideologies like communism and fascism, which would shape the course of the 20th century. It was a time of great upheaval, uncertainty, and a whole lot of soul-searching. The world had entered the modern age, but at a terrible cost. The scars of World War I ran deep, and its legacy would continue to haunt generations to come. Section 7, and the award for most avoidable war goes to... So, there you have it, World War I, a cautionary tale about the dangers of nationalism, militarism, and really, really bad diplomacy. It was a war that nobody wanted, nobody won, and everybody lost. If there's one lesson we can learn from this colossal mess, it's this. Talk to each other, people. Diplomacy, compromise, and maybe a little bit of empathy can go a long way. Because the only thing worse than fighting a war is fighting a war that didn't need to happen in the first place. And the award for most avoidable war goes to World War I. Give it up for the war to end. All wars, spoiler alert, it didn't. Let's just hope we learned our lesson, although history suggests otherwise.